Greeting, fellow Americans and fellow patriots. It's Brian Watson. I do communication for Patriots on Call, and I'm here with the C5 group. And we're going to have Barbara dip her little hello in here real quick. There she is. There's Batgirl. There's Batgirl. So this is the team that wants to help save you money and time and bring you great peace of mind through a lot of different arrows we have in our quiver. Today, we're with our fellow C5 founder, Dana Brunn, and he is a certified healthcare reform specialist. And he wants to share with you, if you own a small business from 1 to 100 employees, kind of what he does when he will have a meeting with you to kind of look at where you are. Are you compliant? How far away are you? We want to keep you out of harm's way and get you compliant. And he's going to explain what he will do with you when you two talk. Very, very real high level talk today, but we want to save you lots of money and time, bring some benefits to you that will benefit your employees. Without further ado, I'm going to let Dana share his screen. And Dana, take it from here. Share when you're ready. We're ready to learn.
All right, fantastic, Brian. Thank you for the fantastic introduction. Can you all see my screen?
Got it.
You can see it?
Yep.
All right, C5, we're going to cover the Ozark Mountain entities employee benefit compliance for mountain entities. And this is one of the most important things that anybody can do with the economy the way it is and so forth. There's a lot of audits going on. A lot of small businesses can get really trapped in what's happening. So what we did is we put together I'm going to kind of buzz through this and I'll hit on a couple different points as I go along. First of all, there's a lot of increasing requirements that people have. Employers are confused. They need really good advice. The problem is there's a lot of greater scrutiny from the Department of Labor, Employee Benefit Security Administration, HHS, Office of Civil Rights. That's another one, because nowadays the way things are and the way the government set them up, I hate to say it this way, but the inmates run the asylum. So we also have to look for the IRS, and there's a lot of brokers and accountants out there that really don't know what to do or how to do it. And they're more interested in accountants are more interested in trying to make sure that your tax returns are done right. But the brokers come in and they do your benefits for you. But what they don't really look at is the compliance piece. So I'm going to do a really quick overview. A lot of people try to ignore this stuff and they want to try to do it yourself. We always say, or outsource it. There's a fiduciary and compliance responsibility that literally lies with the employer. And it's not the responsibility of the accountant, the broker, or us. So an employer needs to work with good advisors to do this. And you need a deeper understanding of compliance. So consultants can earn a lot of trust like we do and procure new clients and protect existing clients. And we just had a lot of changes at the federal level. So we're going to what I'm telling you today could be the truth. Tomorrow, it could be total lie. All right. There's a few things that people need to know. If you're a small employer from 1 to 19 employees, which is what we are concentrating on the most because people don't take the time with the small employers, but there are certain documentation pieces that they need. Number one is called an Erisa document, which needs to go with each health plan that you have, whether it be life, health, dental, vision. Each one needs an Erisa document. That law has been around since 1974, so it's nothing new. So every employee needs to get that Erisa summary plan description. What a lot of people leave out is the PPACA notices, the ACA notices, WICRA, HIPAA, CHIPRA, mental health and parity. This is all of the notices that are supposed to go out to all the employees to make sure that the business itself is compliant. There's Medicare D notices. There's possibly HIPAA if you're self-employed or have a health reimbursement account or a flexible spending account. And of course, you might have ACA reporting if you're a self-employed, if you're self-insured business. If you're 20 to 49, you've got to have everything above plus Cobra. When you get over 50, then you're looking at Family Medical Leave Act, making sure that people track time off that people take. And it could be increments of down to 15 minutes. So you might give somebody 2 weeks of vacation and maybe a week of sick leave. But once they've exhausted all of that, you've got to be able to track that time off. And they're supposed to have benefits during that time. And it can be done on a pre-tax or post-tax basis, depending on how it's set up. But it gets very, very confusing, especially for HR, because there's so many moving parts to this. First off, you've got your Erisa document. Now you've got your Cobra, and then you've got your HIPAA, you've got your ACA reporting, and now you've got to track increments of down to 15 minutes for an employee. It's almost impossible. Then when you get over 100 employees, you have to do the infamous 5,500. So I'm going to kind of go a little bit further with this. Just to give you a little background about Erisa, it was enacted in 1974 to make sure that employer-sponsored health and welfare and retirement plans provide the benefits they promise. You can't say, I'm going to give you this and not do it. So this puts it all in writing. It's been amended and expanded a lot of times over the years. It requires very, very strict communication. In other words, if I'm sending something out to somebody, not only do I have to send it out, but I have to do it in a way that's reasonably calculated to ensure 100% distribution, which means if I send anything out, if I have a benefit plan for us at the C5, Mountain Entities, Ozark, and so forth, I've not only got to send that out, but I've got to be able to prove it. All right. And Outlook doesn't work by email because you can change the dates. So there's certain specific things that you need there. This is overseen by very, very vigorous enforcement by the DOL and the Employee Benefit Security Administration. So we take it down. Erisa, what is it? What's the intent? Well, all employees, all health and welfare plans, and you only need one employee. So a lot of employers say, I don't have enough employees for Erisa. All you need to have is one employee on there. And Erisa covers health, dental, vision, life, EAP plans, wellness, voluntary, even stuff like we do, like virtual primary care and telemedicine, require an Erisa document. And most people mistakenly think Erisa applies only to retirement plans. It also goes with health and welfare plans. So this is what's required. You need a wrap document, which has all the missing terms that are supposed to be in the summary plan description. Let me say it like this. If you buy a car, you put insurance on it. If you buy a health plan, you're buying it from the dealer, which is Buca, Blue Cross, United, Cigna, Aetna. It's your responsibility to put the insurance on it. So Erisa is a way to literally make sure that you're insuring your insurance to be compliant. It's amazing, but it is worthwhile and it needs to be followed. So you've got to create all the appropriate documents, distribute all the documents. They're not evergreen, which means you have to update it every year. If you make a change in the middle of the year, you've got to update your documents, and you have to also make sure that it gets out to all your employees. You have to make those records available to an investigator within 10 days. And we found that over 90, 98, 99% of the employers that are out there have absolutely no idea what Erisa is. Okay, so it goes a little bit further. There's some duties that go to it. The plan administrator really wears too many hats. Imagine being an HR person in today's world. So a lot of the plan sponsors are either unaware of Erisa or they think their insurance carrier documents do it. It doesn't. You buy the car, you put insurance on it. You buy a health plan, you put an Erisa document on it. Now we've got employee complaints and lawsuits. This is the biggest problem. What could go wrong? Well, first of all, and I'm going to say back in January of 2019, they changed all of the amounts that have to go out or the penalties that have to go out. There's also what's called a summary of benefits and coverage. So a month before you actually get benefits, you have to send out a 4-page double-sided document, 12-point font. That's how detailed they want it. That goes to every employee explaining their benefits in a 4-page document. It's almost impossible, but you have to do it. If you don't send it out, it's $1,128 a day. It just jumped to $1,156. So imagine having 10 employees and not providing that summary of benefits and coverage. You're looking at $10,156. That's a lot of money. Failure to file a 5500 if you're over 100 employees to have a self-insured plan. You also have to have a summary plan description. That's $152 a day per violation. So if you're not sending out an ERISA summary plan description, you have 10 people, that's $152 a day times 10. Do the math. Okay, consider outsourcing to an expert. Here's some of the penalties. Now, I will say we just covered the penalties, but the Affordable Care Act was put in by our favorite president, Obama, in 2010 with all kinds of components, and they're phased in over a period of time. It is the law. I will tell you that the individual mandate is gone, but when you're over 50 employees, there is a play or pay penalty, 2,000 or 3,000, and that requires 1094 and 1095 forms that have to be filed and distributed and also sent out to the IRS. Failure to do so is a huge penalty. The 1095B, the 1095C, the 1094 goes to the IRS. You've got distribution times, you've got deadlines that have to be done. It has to be done electronically. You can do it by paper, but you have to send it in a month early. I'm just gonna skim down here. You have to track variable hours for employees. So if you have somebody that comes on board, you have to start tracking them, and then you have a measurement period, you have a stability period that you have to cover. Everything has to be copacetic, and all of this has to be inside of your ERISA documents, as does how you're doing Cobra, as you're supposed to do your Family Medical Leave Act or Emergency Medical Family Leave Act. Let's see. Failure of this coverage, $2,000 to $3,000. Failure to require a 1095. Imagine not sending out 1095s. I just did this with an employer a month ago. They haven't done this for the last 3 years. They have about 110 employees. They didn't send out the form. So it's $250 for the IRS, $250 for the company. That's $500 per form. Don't want to get stuck in this stuff. So then you've got Family Medical Leave Act. People get up to 12 weeks of leave. Okay. And it's unpaid job protected leave. So you can't say, okay, that person was sick, I don't like them, I got to get rid of them. So it's been expanded to cover military, caregiver leave, reservist, deployment. It's 12 months for a regular person. With military exigency, it can go up to 26 weeks. So imagine trying to track 50 or 60 employees that are all over the place, and somebody calls out from work sick. And then somebody goes home early because their child has to go to the doctor. You've got to be able to track all of those movements down to increments of 15 minutes a time. Failure to do so can really mess with an employer, especially if you haven't done your Family Medical Leave Act correctly. All of these things, the employee can literally turn into the employer, turn the employer into the DOL, and then you're really looking some serious penalties. I'm just going to buzz through FMLA because we're dealing mostly with small employers. If you're over 50, you got employee paid sick leave, Employee Family Medical Leave Act. Every business has to have a leave policy. If you're 50 or more employees and they have to work within 75 miles. Here are the penalties and so forth. Before we cover the duties, the owners, the HR staff, managers, supervisors can be held personally or criminally or civilly liable. So if I say to my buddy Brian that's on here, Brian, I'm going to let you off today, and you can pick up that work on Saturday. And he's like, okay, I can do that. But Murray comes to me and says, I need to get out of here today because my kid's sick and I have a different set of rules for Murray. I can be in some serious trouble. Not only can I sue the company, but I can also sue the supervisor or the HR department that failed to give me the leave. COVID-19 added almost impossible challenges for HR. Here come the lawsuits, and we've seen plenty of them. Here are the penalties. Now, this is really crazy, but there's written, accurate, and current FMLA policies and procedures manual. Here's where people lose it. In your ERISA document, you also have to how to treat pilots and flight attendants. Now, I don't know a whole lot of businesses that I work with flight attendants and pilots, but that language literally has to be in that document. So you got to protect the employee privacy and maintain records separate from all the other information. So if you have an employee file, you keep your employee file here, you keep your medical in a separate thing. It's got to be under lock and key. Nobody can see it. Nobody can touch it, because that's also a HIPAA violation. Won't even get into the penalties for HIPAA. We're going to skip through this a little bit. FMLA, what can go wrong? Then we've got Cobra. You've got a general initial notice has to go out to employees once they first start off to let them know about their benefits and so forth. You've got to advise the employee and the spouse. Failure to notify them of their rights in a timely manner can mess with you. Failure to track the deadlines or notices, elections, and payments for Cobra payments when somebody has left the company can mess with an employer in a big way, especially if you're supposed to be offered Cobra and you end up in the hospital and you were never offered Cobra. There's a huge lawsuit that can happen. There's also penalties and excise taxes. You can be assessed at $110 a day with violation with limits as high as $500,000. Have I seen it? Yes, I could give you plenty of examples. In addition to IRS penalties, payments can also be required to the qualified beneficiaries. So that means if I leave my company and I'm offered Cobra, but I split up from my spouse or so forth, they're also supposed to be offered Cobra. Okay, so there's all kinds of little things that can happen in the middle of Cobra. And as long as I've done this over the last 20 years, I've had a lot of HR specialists look at me and say, oh, I've got this handled. And then I see somebody walk in and say, well, I never got my Cobra. So I've actually helped a few friends of mine out on the employee side. I hate to say it, go after the employer so they could get their benefits. That's why you should consider an expert. There are also notices that go with Erisa documents. There's WICRA, there's CHIPRA, there's the patient protection notices, there's HIPAA special rights, marketplace notices, annual Part D notices. All of this has to be distributed, and the Erisa documents and standalone documents have to be sent out to all the employees within 30 days in a way reasonably calculated, again, to ensure 100% distribution, which means not only do you have it, you have to be able to prove that that employee got it. Okay, that is extremely important. PPACA notices. These are all the PPACA notices, HIPAA privacy. HIPAA, we just kind of covered that a little bit. Plan sponsors of self-funded plans and HRA, FSA, that gives the employer the opportunity a lot of times to see some of the protected health information that's out there. So you have to make sure that you're stowing away and securing all of your protected health information. Failure to do so and establish procedures can really mess with an employer. Not only do you have a lawsuit could happen from EBSA, HHS, but you can also get it especially from the employee. Now, there's a lot of different things, multiple categories to incur penalties. 2018 was $28,683,400. They did not know. Sorry, got to know it. Reasonable cause, willful neglect has to be corrected. Willful neglect not corrected. We had an Oregon case, and I actually was on the sidelines of this. It was over $2.7 million for a HIPAA violation. Imagine that. Okay. No HIPAA was found to be compromised, but not having that business associate agreement with my employee that says I can look at their protected health information is punishable. So the largest violation was in 2018 was $16 million. So then we've got the Patient-Centered Outsourced Research Institute. There's another one. If somebody is offering a health reimbursement arrangement or which is a 105 medical reimbursement plan, there is a amount due for each participant that actually participates in an HRA, sometimes an FSA, is $2.45 that's due by the end of July every year. So you can see just from what I'm covering here, how many HR people can literally keep up with this. They can't. And that's not including little things like being able to pre-tax the health insurance plan and having a Section 125 premium only plan in place. And then also making sure that all the kiddies that work for you have been treated in a non-discriminatory way, which means everybody gets the same thing. Just because I like Derek a little more than I like Brian doesn't mean that he gets a better benefit than Brian does. Okay. Or Brian's been picking on me, so I give Brian a better benefit than Derek, so he leaves me alone. You can't do that. And that, believe it or not, there are employers that actually do that. There's a lot of favoritism that happens. Well, that employee, I don't want to lose them, so I'm going to give them a little bit of a better benefit. So you want to make sure that you're not being discriminatory. The PCORI I just kind of covered. There are fiduciary responsibilities lie with the employer. They can choose to ignore this. It's not advised. You can do it yourself or outsource it to an expert. Employers should definitely work with a good advisor to be aware of and be compliant in all of their obligations. Remember, there is an election coming up soon, guys. So anything I told you can change. So for a deeper dive, if you want to get into more of this, how all of these programs work, my information's here at the bottom, and I'll be glad to handle any questions that you possibly can have. I also have a checklist that I'll be glad to send out to you at the end of the presentation, so you can check off exactly where you are based on the size, whether you're 1 to 19, whether you're 20 to 49, because there's different regulations for each. If you're 51 or greater, there's different regulations for that. If you're 100 or greater, there's different regulations for that. So I do provide a checklist. Not only that, but I can run a comprehensive, what we call compliance dashboard, which means I can ask you 40 questions. I can plug it into my computer. I can tell you exactly where you're out of compliance and approximately what the cost would be to the employer if they are audited by the DOL, EBSA, HHS, OCR, Office of Civil Rights, and so forth. Here's the biggest problem to it. Not only do we have the government, but nowadays the employees, because you're giving them that little 4-page explanation of benefits, that 4-page double-sided benefit summary of benefits. When an employee gets wind of this and they have questions, a lot of people are pretty smart. They look up on the DOL website or what have you. Employees, by turning in the employer for not providing them the documentation that they should have, if the employee turns an employer in to the DOL usually acts within 30 days. If that employer does not have all the documentation that's required for that employee within 30 days, that employee is getting paid by the employer $110 a day. So if I don't like the employer, I'm going to call Murray up and go, hey, Murray, you know what I found out? I can get $110 a day out of Derek's company. This is how we do it. All we have to do is turn them in and ask for this, and they don't have it. We turn them in and they don't have it in 30 days and we get paid. And there's nothing that the employer can do. They can't fire them. They can't have any ill will against them. They can't go after the employee. They can't do any of that stuff. So our job here at Ozark Mountain Entities and Patriots on Call is to make sure that not only are you saving time and peace of mind, but you're doing things right, because we want to make sure that employees have a great, solid place to work. And we want to make sure that the HR and the employer has taken all of this stuff off of their plate. If it's done correctly, it does not cost to be compliant, because there are certain things that are in here that actually save employers money, especially Family Medical Leave Act, premium only plans, and so forth, where there are savings built into it. So if it's done right, it doesn't cost to be compliant, costs not to be, and most of the time it can be set up in a way where the administration and the way it's done can actually cover the cost of the admin. So with that, I'll just open it up for any questions, see if you guys have any questions for me.
Dana, go ahead and stop sharing your screen, and we'll wrap up this wonderful high-level view.
Did that help you?
So if someone's catching this that has to do with being a business owner, or they're involved in human resources, their next step, Dana, with your permission, I'm going to leave a link to that PDF of the questions asked based on size will be available with this video. And if it's okay, I'll also leave a link to this PowerPoint PDF in case they like to review this too. Is that okay with you?
That's absolutely fine. And there's more, Brian. If anybody wants anything else on tax savings and and so forth, we can accommodate them as well there. And I'll do another presentation for you on that as well.
So Dana has dedicated a good chunk of his life to becoming an expert in these fields, and consultations with Dana just to listen. He's going to listen and he's going to learn, and his advice will most likely save you a ton of money and time. And he's got some great. This is just for you to get a feeling of the services we can provide from Mountain Entities and the services that possibly will help you from Patriots on Call. But most importantly, if you've got this far in the video, you've got something going on that you are concerned about. And so I'll give you contact information, how to reach out to Dana and schedule your own Zoom with him. You're welcome to send him a question first, and you guys can do an email exchange that way. And I'll provide all that link and information. Derek, is there anything on your mind that a question for Dana or something you'd like to share?
No, Dana, good presentation.
Thank you.
Very informative.
I want to add one thing though, guys. The neat thing about this is everything that we do has either $1 million hold harmless or an audit guarantee. So it's going to get done right. If we screw it up, we're going to back everything that we do.
Right, and that's guys,
It's
this
priceless.
video was made to help provide great peace of mind that'll save you money and time. But our biggest concern is you worked really hard for that money and to make that money and to build that business, and for you to get dinged for a technicality. We don't want that ever to happen to you, because there's booby traps out there everywhere, and it's kind of like a speed trap when you go through. When you go through Highway 70 and you're headed out somewhere and you go from 35 to 25 to 15 to those are no accidents. So just like we encounter speed traps, we encounter compliance traps, and we're going to pull out our radar gun and we're going to help you avoid these traps, because they're there for revenue generating purposes.
Absolutely.
And that's not cool. But neither are speed traps, but that's okay. That's how those are the extra taxes we get to pay in this game. So thank you so much for tuning in. We're going to be sharing this in all kinds of different places. And if you have anything to do with staying compliant as a business owner, you need to talk to Dana Brunn. And thank you so much for that. And we really appreciate your time. Tune in next time as we unpack one little tip, one Patriot tip at a time. Thank you, fellow Americans, for watching. Good day.